Welcome and thank you for joining us today for New Opportunities Arising. Are you ready for Big Data 2.0? My name is Raleigh Gould and I'll be your moderator for today's event. Today's featured speakers are Shawn Rogers, VP of Research at Enterprise Management Associates, and John Santaferraro, VP of Solutions and Product Marketing at Actyon. With more than 19 years of IT experience, Shawn delivers comprehensive coverage of BI and data warehouse technology in his role as VP of Research at EMA. Prior to joining EMA, Shawn co-founded the BI Network and held the position of Executive VP and Editorial Director. With 20 years of experience in big data analytics and business intelligence, John has co-founded a data warehouse startup company and held executive BI marketing positions in top tech companies like Tandem, Compaq, and HP. In addition, he founded his own consulting company, Ferraro Consulting. And before I hand it over to today's featured speakers, I did want today's audience to know that Shawn and John will be dedicating the last 10 or 15 minutes to answering your questions, so I do encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity by logging your questions at any time throughout the course of the presentation using the Q&A functionality. Also, today's event is being recorded, and you will be receiving a follow-up email tomorrow that will include the on-demand playback as well as some additional big data resources, so be on the lookout for that. And now I'd like to go ahead and turn things over to our first featured speaker, Shawn Rogers. Shawn?
Raleigh, thanks a lot. It's great to be here, and thanks to Actyon for making today's presentation available to our listeners. New Opportunities Arising. Are you ready for Big Data 2.0 is the title of our program today. And, I think sitting here in the new year and looking forward to some of the things that are going to disrupt our landscapes and challenge all of us to deliver to our clients and customers in a better way, big data is certainly a key to that. And for me, big data, having been in this space as long as I've been from a business intelligence, data warehousing background, big data is now one of the hottest topics that we discuss, and it's certainly one of the fastest moving or evolving technologies that I've seen kind of hit our arena in a very long time. Just about when you think you're starting to understand how to apply it, how to use it, and how to leverage it for your company, the game changes again. I've never seen in my 19, 20 years of experience have I ever seen the vendor community innovate so quickly around a set of capabilities and then to stretch them beyond what they're already doing for people. So we've seen a very large shift and change over the last, say, 18 months from what I guess we could consider Big Data 1.0 to Big Data 2.0, the title of today's program. So I'm hoping that I'm going to get a chance to talk about how disruptive it is today, and I'm going to show you some research that EMA has executed that I think supports the premise of today's conversation. We'll talk about some of the challenges and basically explore why big data has become so mission critical for companies. 18 months ago, it was something that people were testing and playing with. Now it's already found a very critical position within the enterprise. And part of that and part of what's driving it is that we're now dealing with this capability of being more sophisticated in our approach to our work. And part of that sophistication, and I'll dive deeper into it as we go along today, but part of that sophistication is bringing multiple or mixed workloads and mixed platforms and mixed data all together in an environment that allows you to be successful, but at the same time, we need to strive to make sure that we're not adding extra complexity to our environments to where it becomes super difficult to use these new types of solutions. And we're looking for flexibility and agility in the platforms and solutions that we definitely want to utilize to get the job done. The next bullet on the screen is Internet of Things, and it's really just for me a prompt to kind of talk about the data. And for those of you who follow me on Twitter, I poked fun at big data companies this week because I think we're all pretty much aware of the fact that data is really, really, really big. And that's really not what's exciting to us about big data. It's really what's exciting to us is all of these new sources of information that we haven't been able to practically involve in our environments in the past. And I think that that's one of the keys to where big data is going to help us. But certainly the data side of this issue continues to grow. multiply and evolve. It's obviously delivering new value to what we're able to do because we're able to get our hands on some new information that maybe we couldn't in the past. I've got some research that I'll share with you a little further down in my presentation today that will talk about where the data is coming from, what sources are evolving and changing, and which ones are most popular. The great thing, and I kind of just touched on this, about being able to do big data gives us the opportunity to do what was once impractical. Someone asked me a while back, when did big data really begin? And I said, under different names and under different definitions, big data has been around for quite some time. The trouble with big data in the past has always been in the economic and technology forks in that road. If you wanted to do big data 10, 15 years ago, you could. You needed a room full of Cray computers, and you needed a federal grant to get the job done. And then you asked the system one question, and you went away for a week in hopes to come back to an answer. The great thing about the technologies that have found their way into the market now is that they're financially practical. The technology is now fast enough and powerful enough to allow us to iterate and to save time and to do the analytics and the operational workloads that we'd like to do at the speed of our businesses. And that's very important. There is a big shift right now from this 1.0 to 2.0 type formula. We're seeing companies moving away from the batch loading kind of idea of handling their data to a more real-time atmosphere. We see analytics is still important, but that operational workloads are also becoming more important to the end users of big data projects. So lots of things are evolving, as I said at the top, and they're evolving at speeds that I just haven't seen in the past. And when that happens, it obviously opens up a lot of great opportunities, but also some challenges. And those challenges are around, as I said prior, eliminating complexity in the environments that are serving us, being able to keep up to the speed of the business, obviously being able to work with the diverse data that's available to us, and filling in or finding solutions that help us work around these large skill gaps that many of you have read about and heard about when it comes to working with certain aspects of big data environments. And for those of you who are keeping track today, I've been talking for almost 10 minutes, and I've yet to use the word Hadoop because, frankly, from where I sit, Hadoop is an element of big data, but it's not the all, end-all of everything that people are doing with big data. We see big data actually operating or functioning in a much more diverse ecosystem. And for EMA, we like to talk about hybrid data ecosystems here, and this is a representation of how we think of what's going on in the data management space, but also more importantly in big data. So on the outside ring of what you're looking at, you've got a very wide array of users, some of them technical, some of them business, and some of them new. My favorite one is over there at about 9 o'clock, the data scientist with the mohawk is certainly a new user that we're working to serve and make happy with access to information and the systems that support it. If you look around the inner ring there, the blue ring, at the top we have operational analytics, operational processing, exploration, and just straight-off analytics. And these types of diverse workloads are putting pressure on the traditional systems that we've had in place and forcing us, I think positively, to look at solutions that offer us a way to manage multiple platforms. And that's where the big shift has been, and it's very prevalent around the big data space. We're finding that more and more companies, as we talk to them, are operating multiple platforms, and you'll see here in the different nodes that I have into this diagram, at the top data marts and at the bottom NoSQL, you'll see a few others that you readily recognize. These platforms are all kind of finding a place in the enterprise to serve the needs of the end users in different ways. And they all have valuable or compelling value propositions. Ultimately, what it amounts to is that our end user customers, the people I get to talk to in the real world on a regular basis, are actually aligning their data along with the workload that they'd like to get done on the best possible platform for speed, maybe, or for economics, or for use. And they look at this bundle of requirements we have here in the center to sort of make those decisions. And I'm going to expand on those just a little bit. ultimately, as hybrid data ecosystems continue to support big data initiatives, there is a huge pressure for the vendor community to help you orchestrate this environment. Because obviously, if you don't have orchestration or highly integrated relationships between the platforms within your ecosystem, you're starting to build something that will become monolithic and very difficult for you to work with and to drive value out of. So this shift that we're seeing is one of the pieces that I'd like to kind of present today as sort of proof that there really is a change going on in big data, and as it moves from the 1.0 time to the 2.0 time that we're talking about today. And at the core, when I'm talking to our customers and when we're trying to help people understand the opportunities that they have in front of them, when they're looking at these hybrid data ecosystems and the platforms that play a role there, the question becomes, well, what platform is right, or what combination of platforms is right for big data and for leveraging all this new information? And as you look at these 5 bullets, the structure, the load, economics, and analytics, and response, they're the 5 pieces that you have to think clearly about as you decide what elements or tools you want to bring into your system in order to execute against the big data workload. So there's really quite a demand for diversity. And at the core of it, you've got to take a look at these requirements. You have to decide, well, what kind of model, or do I want the data modeled at all? Do I want to leave the data schemaless and just put it into my environment so that I have a lot of flexibility of the structure of the information down the line? We're seeing this as a very positive kind of paradigm shift. We're not putting as much time and energy and money into transforming data on ingest. We're actually putting it into the system, allowing it to be there, and then when we call upon it, we're applying models much closer to the process or the application that's going to use it. This speaks to agility of data. It speaks to flexibility of system, and we see this occurring on a pretty regular basis. Next question you have to ask yourself is, well, if we're going to address this, how are we going to load it? What mix of data types and sources are we looking at? What are the challenges here? How are we going to maintain speed of data in the environment? The next piece, of course, is the economics. Is the system you're looking at for addressing these more sophisticated workloads going to fit your budget? The analytics, I touched on this already, complexity of workload, hybrid workloads, make it difficult for us to set our eyes on one particular solution. So you have to start looking at the overall work, what you want to get done, and then see what obstacles you might be seeing in your traditional systems. Last but not least is a theme I'm going to talk about a little bit for my next 15 minutes, which is the speed of scale, speed to answer, and the overall response time of the system. So for a lot of who are on today's call, that Hadoop, which has been very synonymous with big data, is not necessarily a real-time platform. It's generally batch loaded, and it's good for going through huge amounts of information, but it's not fantastic for operational workloads. And our research recently has kind of proven that out, that there's a shift away from Hadoop to other platforms in the ecosystem for getting big data done. So let me share a little bit with you some of the research that Enterprise Management Associates has recently completed. We had a great opportunity to take a look at, by our survey device, nearly 600, I think it was 597 total, active big data projects. And I'm sure there's a few of you in the audience that are thinking, there's 600 big data projects out there? And the answer is yes, because things are moving along pretty quickly. When we got to look at all of this information and all of the data that we captured on these projects, it kind of painted this 2.0 picture for us and showed us that people were really operationalizing big data. You can see here that the sponsors, or the people that are paying for big data projects, certainly IT is still out there in the lead, but there's been a shift, and that number is softer than it was before. For me, the interesting number is the next 3 bars: finance, marketing, and sales. And they make up almost 42% of the people or departments that are actually sponsoring big data initiatives. So for those of you who think that big data is nothing but technology, it's really being driven by business departments. And finance, marketing, and sales have jumped forward quite significantly this year, and really point a picture for the fact that companies are operationalizing what they're doing around big data. A little bit more from our research, and the shift that I want to show you here, once again, I think it really supports the conversation, is last year at the bottom of the chart, you can see the green line there. 51% of the folks that helped us with our research the year before indicated that online archiving was their number one use case. So what that told us was companies were storing the information, then perhaps they were engaging or putting the information or data that they had for big data in these new platforms like Hadoop or NoSQL, and they were starting to test it, but that they weren't as sophisticated as they needed to be, and we believe that a lot of folks were merely Hadumping, putting their data down in hopes to be able to eke out some sort of value from it down the road. You can see a significant change this year from 51 to 35% on that particular line, and that shift is pretty dramatic as people have gone away from archiving and have jumped up to the top of the screen here, where you'll see that the number one use case from this year's projects was actually speed of processing response. So there's been a shift away from data that was at rest, data that was in an archival sort of position, to now speed of processing response being the number one use case for how people were actually addressing big data as an opportunity. So you can't forget the technical drivers, and IT is certainly under pressure to find new ways to solve, I guess, old problems for their end users. And, so we asked them and tried to figure out from all of the folks that were helping us with this research, what exactly was their biggest driver towards doing big data projects? And I guess we weren't surprised that scaling issues with current or traditional platforms was at the top, but the two that follow that, both of them at 17% or so, requirements for faster analytical or transaction processing of structured or multi-structured data sets came in second. And, of course, reacting faster to real-time data came in third. These two combined show us that there's a really good shift away from doing just standard analytics to things that are more real-time in nature, and shifting towards sort of a big data 2.0 workload where companies are being more sophisticated and doing what I said up front, which is more critical enterprise work utilizing big data as a component of what they want to achieve, which brings us to the next chart, which I found real fascinating. So once again, I just want to set the stages as you're looking at the information in front of you. This represents nearly 600 active big data projects. And one of the things that we were able to take away was, what are you doing with these projects? So we got to ask our end users, and we know you're doing these projects, what are the workloads that are most important to you? And it's interesting. The press likes to talk about social data analytics and things of that nature. I write about that topic often, but you'll see that it's second from the bottom, and sentiment analysis is just above that. If you look to the top, fraud analytics or analysis, liquidity risk assessment, customer relationship management, staffing and scheduling and logistic asset planning, all of these things have an operational spin to them. And what's more important here, I think, for today's conversation, going back to whether or not you might be ready for Big Data 2.0, is that each of these workloads, you can clearly see in these types of projects that they require multiple data sources. They require multiple platforms generally. They require mixed workloads. Each of the platforms is going to do a different part of the work. You can see where traditional platforms will still play a role in the ecosystem. It's hard to do fraud analysis if you don't understand the customer. The customer data is probably in an operational system or in a data warehouse somewhere. So you need to pull that data and bring it together with perhaps real-time streaming data in order to react to fraud in a timely enough manner to get the value from it. Now, when you start talking about these types of projects, we're talking about really cool, sophisticated, mission-critical enterprise-type work. So I think that this chart alone, we found probably one of the most interesting things that we were able to pull from our data this year to see how sophisticated and see this shift away from asking a big data platform a simple analytic question and moving on to something that's more operational in its focus. We took a look once again at the challenges, and we kind of brought them all together so that we could have a better understanding of what project challenges these people were seeing. And the biggest project challenge that they were using big data to affect or apply big data to, almost 50%, 48%, is operational analytics. So once again, that shift has really kind of moved away from a purely analytic to a more operational stance in how people want to leverage the technology and how they want to utilize it. So it kind of brings us to the data sources, and I said up front that I would touch on this as well. Once again, kind of using that phrase of shifting from one to another, we see a dramatic shift this year over last year from the type of data that companies were using in their big data projects. You can see that human-sourced information, the set of charts on the bottom or the bars on the bottom, have dramatically changed. There's basically almost a 13.5% drop between 2012 on up to 2013. And human-sourced information is the type of data that humans put into systems, whether it's through workflow, filling out forms online, information that's put into e-commerce carts, all of those types of human interactive data. That's what we're talking about there. The one that's kind of taken over this year for 2013 heading into 14 is the machine-generated information. And you can see that they jumped a little bit more than we saw the human-sourced information actually drop. And I want to make the case that human-sourced information is going to continue to be part of what we're looking at for big data, but I think that there's a lot more innovative opportunities around being able to handle the size of data that comes from the machine-generated world, and I think that that's opening up opportunities for companies who have the ability to scale their big data ecosystems to handle that type of information, and once again, to handle it at a speed that's relevant to their business. So again, using that term of a shift from V1 to V2 for big data, another, I think, kind of compelling piece of information that perhaps helps me win my case today that this is occurring. So I want to circle back just one last time to the hybrid data ecosystem, because I just want to make a comment that, looking at the workloads, things like liquidity and risk, the asset management, CRM, looking at the mixed data, looking at how machine data is making a play, and all of the other information I've shared with you so far, we are definitely in this hybrid data world, and we're able to find, because there is this hybrid mix of information and a hybrid mix of platforms, we found it was kind of important for our research this year, and once again to kind of illustrate how things are evolving so quickly, was to look and ask, of these 600 folks who took our survey and were doing these projects, we asked them, well, what are you using to get the job done, and how many platforms are you dealing with? Directly to the question or the premise of today's conversation. And this chart, I think, will help illustrate it for you. 59 or almost 60% of the people that are doing big data projects are using 2 to 3 different computing platforms to get the job done. So very much speaks to this hybrid ecosystem that we here at EMA have authored and talk about an awful lot. Even if you look at the bottom squares at the bottom, nearly 12% of the folks that we talk to are using between 4 and 8 platforms to get the job done. So it's really proven out to us that the hybrid data ecosystems have kind of come home to roost, and at the same time, it's because of those new challenges that are being put upon it. And I want to go back to that word of orchestration or highly integrated, because when you are dealing with multiple groups of platforms and multiple data types and mixed workloads, you very much have to have a solution that hides some of that complexity. And we're starting to see, I think, a movement in the vendor community right now as things are maturing towards attempting to solve that problem. And a lot of vendors are touching on that through more sophisticated data integration tools, more kind of connectivity between one side of a platform and the other. And of course, we're also starting to see vendors bring into the community more hybrid systems that know that you're going to need several platforms or several compute types to get the work done. So why not put them in a single spot for you and make it easier, which we think here at EMA is a brilliant idea and one that you ought to be looking for when you're looking at the vendor community. So some of you are probably thinking, all right, so people are using multiple platforms, they're doing multiple work, so what platforms are they using? And I think that this one might shock some of you who are on the call today. The analytic database platform and appliances is actually the number one platform from our users who are doing projects. This is the tool that they're using the most for big data. Operational data stores and cloud-based data solutions come in second and third, and I'll let you read the rest of the page. I think many of you will be surprised to see that NoSQL and Hadoop, specifically Hadoop, only makes up about 16.2% of the big data projects that we see, and that it's actually not nearly the most popular component of most companies' big data projects. So once again, to set the stage here, we were able to talk to 600 projects, look at the work they were doing, and then look at the tools that they were using. And we weren't surprised that Hadoop came in lower, but many people we've shared this information with have been. And I'm not trying to discount Hadoop. Hadoop has an integral place in your strategy for big data and for many types of workloads. It is a fabulous answer. The bottom line is that you need to create an environment or an ecosystem that matches your individual needs. If you're one of those 60% of the companies that are out there that are dealing with 2 or 3 platforms, the question is, are we dealing with the right platforms? Do we have the right tools at hand? Have we looked at structure and load and response and economics and determined that these are the right things that we need? And that's obviously something that we share with our end users when we talk about big data strategies. I'm sure many of you in the audience have been in a meeting where an upper executive has recently traveled and read Forbes on the airplane and have come into a meeting and said, hey, we have to run out and get ourselves one of those Hadoop things. And the question that needs to follow is why, and what type of work did you expect to get done on it? Because we're seeing Hadoop as part of the ecosystems, but we're also seeing some of these other platforms as a major piece of it. And hopefully that sheds a little light on the strategy side for things. You know, I talked a little bit before about orchestration and having the capabilities to present a solution or to put a solution in place for yourself that helps you make things work better, highly integrated, orchestrated between nodes. And I like the little quote. I stole it from an executive from EMC a year or two ago, and we talked about this thing about the hybrid data ecosystem, that there was a part there that could go terribly wrong. If you match your data and your workloads to the right platforms, and you bring those data workloads and platforms together, the next piece is how do you manage the information between them? How do you manage the workloads? How do you manage the environment overall? Because if you're not careful, you're going to create silos, or what this executive called cylinders of excellence. And so I asked some of you in the audience today, give some thought to your world. Are you dealing with multiple platforms? And do you have a solution in place that allows you to bind them together and manage them in a cohesive manner? Because if you don't, you're going to run into much bigger problems in your big data strategy. I see that sort of the interlinking and certainly the data side of this issue can be summed up in 3 sort of different ways that we see vendors approaching or orchestrating or integrating their platforms. And of course, the first group is the tools. And obviously, you're going to continue to have these tools in your ecosystem. You're still going to need to shuffle data around a little bit. ETL obviously is a tool for your toolbox for doing that. But when we think about big data scale and we think about putting 100 terabytes of big data into a Hadoop cluster, that's not data you're going to want to move anytime soon. If you make a commitment to big data in the cloud and you put this data and information in a cloud, you're going to have some physical issues that you're going to have to overcome as far as moving that information from the cloud back to a system behind your firewall. So you need the tools to get it done. ETL is going to play a role there. Data virtualization is certainly a more sophisticated approach to that, one that a lot of companies are exploring right now to help sort of integrate and bring their worlds together. The stack approach, as I call it, is basically the vendors in our community who see opportunity in providing you with a hybrid system, one that has different components within it that allow you to do different things with each of those components and switch back and forth between them. These companies are doing an excellent job of kind of binding, orchestrating that layer so that you don't have to get inundated by the complexity and the management aspects of it. You just get to ask questions or run the queries or do the work processes and the operational workloads against the data and get what you need from it. And we think that that's something that you ought to be thinking about and looking at as you're trying to move from sort of a big data 1 to a big data 2. The last bit is inside the engine is the nickname I've called it. And there's a lot of vendors in the space that are doing some very innovative things around their capabilities to share metadata, between their compute platforms or in a hybrid arena. They have processing options that you can take advantage of that allow you to be more fine-tuned, more sophisticated in your approach to what the platforms can do for you. And then, of course, there's folks out there that are addressing this flexibility issue, this agility issue around data, not forcing you to apply models too early and allowing you to do things like late binding models and changing your data and using it as an asset as it's needed and for the exact purposes that it's needed. So, and these are some of the more sophisticated things you're going to see in these systems that are more hybrid in their approach. So lastly, my time's almost up, so I kind of want to remake my point if I can. The premise of today's conversation is that things have shifted, things have changed, they've matured, and they're maturing really fast. And I think that it's very much driven by process-driven workloads and a demand for real-time requirements. Our research is supporting that. We know that those are the top drivers for the business and for the IT folks. We've been able to query and ask questions of people that are doing big data projects and have proven out through the research that real-time or right time or speed of business is critical for them and that they're willing to use the right platform for the right challenge. And that makes a lot of sense. We see a switch, a strategy from smart folks in the space going towards a more highly integrated or a diverse or a hybrid data ecosystem. The idea behind that is to create kind of a feature-rich, agile, and flexible world. I've used the word orchestration or orchestrated several times today, and that's key. If you don't want these cylinders of excellence, you want platforms that can talk to each other, that you can leverage in multiple ways, but still doing that in a simple enough way that it doesn't become overbearing or create the skill gap issue that we've seen around some of these new platforms. I think some of the other opportunities that are out there for these more sophisticated platforms is once you've figured out how to do workload A, B, and C, you get kind of this reusability, right? You've learned once and then utilize many times, which then starts to make that hybrid environment a lot more useful to you and a lot faster from time to value as far as each project goes. And also these systems that are more sophisticated, I think, are helping companies bridge that skill gap. So, if you're looking at Big Data 1 trying to figure out how to run MapReduce jobs and trying to hire somebody, a data scientist or somebody else with a skill set to come in to work with your Hadoop cluster, you might want to start looking at some of these more hybrid cultures that will allow you to do some of these things without getting so buried deep in that skill gap area. Last but not least, hybrid solutions are meeting the needs of the big data requirements. And as we kind of move away from batch load, as we move away from analytic use only, and we get more operational in our approach, the platforms are going to become more diverse. You're going to have a more diverse world, and this hybrid solution or the hybrid ideas behind these solutions, I think, are the drivers behind helping us kind of move on to this next level of big data utilization. So hopefully I've made my point on Big Data 2.0. I think we're definitely heading in that direction, if not already there. And I think with that, I'll hold off on questions for me. And John, I'm going to put you on your first slide and let whomever give you the rights to move them. And thanks.
Shawn, thank you very much. There's a lot of people talking about big data. I love the fact that when you're talking about big data and the shift to Big Data 2.0 that you're letting the data talk. You've got the facts and figures behind it. So appreciate that. At Actyon, the Actyon Analytics platform is really accelerating this push towards Big Data 2.0. So when we look at the marketplace, I want to echo a lot of the things that Shawn has said. There's a lot of data that's been captured. The truth is that about 88% of that big data that has been captured hasn't been touched. And in that data, the 88% are hidden about $15 trillion of value according to the McKinsey Study. And it's only about 1% of the companies that really have all of the capability in place, the right skill set, the right tools, the ability to put all of the pieces of a Hadoop and analytic and a hybrid data ecosystem in place to be able to get the value out of that data that they want. And so what we're looking at is this huge opportunity that is there, that understanding that with that value hidden in data, companies that are able to access it are actually the ones that are becoming the leaders in their industries. And this is a study that was done by McKinsey that shows in industries all across the board, companies who are doing big data analytics end up growing faster. And this is looking at 10-year CAGR. They're growing faster than companies that aren't able to access big data, and that's driving this move towards cloud and Hadoop and all of the analytic-enabled processes and analytics flowing out to business processes. And it's driving this new technology that is surrounding the older legacy technology and driving real value out of big data. And so as we look at this major shift that is taking place, we want to herald what's gone on with Big Data 1.0. There's some great achievements in the last several years. One, this enormous affordable scale of data storage systems, especially compared to the old way of storing data in SANs and NAS. And so that's a great accomplishment. As a result of that, there's a massive amounts of data being captured that have never before been captured. And so companies don't throw away data anymore. And they're actually capturing the data and pouring it into platforms like Hadoop, not even concerned about whether or not there's value in that data because it's affordable and it scales. As a result of all that data being captured, this first wave of big data has introduced a wave of data discovery and data provisioning, so that almost every company on the planet now is capturing a lot of data, beginning to discover what's there, and starting to provision data to analytics or to parts of the business that need it. And as a result of that, there's this greater awareness of all these emerging data types, machine data that Shawn talked about, social data. And so as a result of Big Data 1.0, what's emerged from that is the reality that it is analytics that is the number one use case for big data. That's what unlocks the value that's sitting there in all of that data. Along with these achievements of Big Data 1.0, there's a number of challenges as well. It continues to be extremely complex to put all the parts together of the Hadoop open source and piecing that together with a number of other platforms that you need to be able to handle all the different workloads in your environment. There's the requirement of specialty skill sets from MapReduce programmers all the way up to the data scientists and the writing Java programs and Python programs to be able to access and create value out of the data that sits in the big data systems. There's some lack of enterprise-class capabilities around security and high availability, and as Shawn mentioned, performance continues to be an issue. And so the big data challenges are really driving a whole new set of technology requirements, so that when we think about what does it take to make this shift from Big Data 1.0 to 2.0, where we're going to operationalize big data, we're going to begin getting value out of it, we're going to take it out of the lab and start operationalizing and moving towards real time with applications running on the data, we're going to abstract out of it all the complexity. What does it take to make that shift to Big Data 2.0 from a technology perspective? So number one, analytic building blocks that provide accessibility for non-skilled and less skilled workers. We have to and are making it simpler in Big Data 2.0 so that somebody who is not a data scientist or a data expert can put together operators or libraries of analytic functions and be able to grab that data that they need and attach it to the data and to have more accessibility to what's going on. Second, moving the processing to where the data lives will operationalize big data and push toward real time. And so the solutions that are driving this forward in the Actyon platform is looking at how do you take the processing and move it to where the data lives. You want to be able to minimize the amount of data movement that you have in Big Data 2.0. Next generation platforms are creating service layers on top of the big data ecosystem that abstract away all the complexity of the underlying infrastructure. It shouldn't matter to the end user where the processing is being done, how it's being optimized, how process is being shared by Hadoop and an analytic platform. And so service layers are now abstracting away the complexity. There's also the combining of non-relational and relational data to enable richer sets of analytics. And so the Big Data 1.0 there was a big separation, a chasm still between unstructured data where it lived and the relational data where it lived. Those are coming together in Big Data 2.0. Unified platforms provide modular approaches that cover the entire analytic process. And so, as Shawn talked about, what we're doing at Actyon is bringing the platform together into a unified platform, again, so that you have one platform where you can do everything you need across relational, non-relational, NoSQL eventually. And so these unified platforms are what are driving Big Data 2.0. And then finally, cooperative processing, where you can share processing across the different components within the ecosystem to be able to deliver faster time to value and better price performance. Ultimately, there's been a lot of money spent on big data. We need to start getting value out of that. And so with these new platforms, winning companies are using this emerging data to create transformative value for their companies. The machine data, digital data, that in the Internet of Things out there, that where everything is connected, and all of these, trillions of time-stamped events that are being created to give you a micro snapshot of your world at any point in time. All of the behavioral data and the proliferation of apps that are pouring out of your mobile phone and your smartphone, where you have 100 apps all accessing all of the data in your phone and creating this incredible micro hyper-segmentation data that companies now want to leverage. And then all the conversational data from social media, but also from sources like a conversation between a 911 center dispatcher and the emergency medical technician in the field. How valuable is that to the 911 center? So there's this rich set of new data just waiting to provide transformative value for companies who can get access to it. Winning companies are also using new, more sophisticated kinds of analytics to create value, predicting what's going to happen, preventing something detrimental from happening, prescribing next best offer or action, and doing that at a more real-time, with more real-time capability, where somebody can click on your site, you immediately respond with the next best offer based on up-to-the-moment kinds of information and analytics. And so in the midst of all of this shift to Big Data 2.0, what we really all want is a unified platform where you can connect invisibly to millions of data sources, on-premise or in the cloud, where you can analyze everything without constraints across the entire ecosystem of data, users, and applications. And then the ability to a platform that allows you to automate action and events with real-time intelligence for anyone in the office or on the move. This ability to be able to automate action with sophisticated algorithms and with real-time alerts and with analytics embedded in business processes. And so the Actyon Analytics platform does exactly what was just described in that last slide. It's a single platform that combines all of the ability to connect, analyze, and act, and allows you to take all of this data that's pouring into your world and create value out of it, to delight your customers by being able to offer them something that's extremely relevant and shaping their behavior and shaping their experience as your customer, to be able to sustain a competitive advantage over time by remaking yourself over and over again, to be able to do world-class risk management, to be able to take disruptive new business models to market. And so the Actyon Analytics platform does all of this, and it does it at an extremely high-performance speed. Shawn mentioned that one of the number one asks of people doing big data projects today is, how do I do it faster? How do I speed my response times? How do I deliver my analytic applications faster? And so the Actyon platform accelerates Hadoop with 30 to 40 times performance. It supercharges all of the ETL and data provisioning and data preparation that you're doing on Hadoop. It runs optimized analytics, data science algorithms directly on the Hadoop node. It accelerates both analytics and BI with extreme performance, extreme agility, and extreme scale. So however much data you need to run, however many analytic applications you need to run on the platform, we're doing those at a highly performant speed. And then we're also accelerating action and response time, lowering the latency of your model turns. One of our customers, it has 10,000 customer segmentations that they're recalculating 20 times a day. So whenever somebody touches the website, they get an immediate response and the most up-to-date, sophisticated segmentation that they can possibly have. Another customer is taking very complex fraud models, 160 of them, and pumping it into their FICO fraud protection system and doing it at a rapid rate so that they're always protecting against the most recent fraud capabilities. So when you think about it, in the old world, Big Data 1.0, you had a bunch of MapReduce coders doing everything along the entire value chain, trying to do everything from grabbing the data to loading it into Hadoop, grouping it, running analytics against it, writing it out to some kind of an application. That kind of coding practice was taking up to 4 weeks. With the Actyon Analytics platform, you can actually, in about 25 minutes, use a drag-and-drop framework to be able to do all of your data capture, your loading, your filtering, your grouping, your analytics, and write it out to the application. So when we talk about acceleration, we're talking about simplifying 4 weeks down to 25 minutes. In another situation, we had a customer who was basically using traditional technology to run market basket analysis that had 85 hours in terms of time to value. By simplifying the process, we were able to reduce that down to 75 seconds. And so as we look at the platform, what we're really talking about is giving you Big Data 2.0 capabilities, the ability to connect to any data or platform for greater precision, prepare and enrich the data for increased value, all on one platform, share computing and data for real-time accuracy, be able to run a query against the platform and go grab data at runtime so you have the freshest, most accurate data. You're able to analyze everything. You choose from hundreds of analytic building blocks, so you're just really putting the pieces together to build your analytic applications. You can rapidly assemble and reuse these analytic workflows so that you can, again, speed the time to value of these new analytic applications, and then you're deploying new analytic applications in days instead of weeks or months. And then the platform allows you to automate action. We're optimizing response to events with lower and lower latency. I talked about the 10,000 segments calculated hourly, and the fraud algorithm that is informing the FICO fraud detection system. We've got another solution being run at a major government organization where they're actually running all of their very complex cybersecurity algorithms and pumping that into their network protection system. And so we're optimizing the response to events with lower and lower latency. We're increasing the precision of these automated decisions and even delivering real-time intelligence to anyone, anywhere. And using the Actyon Analytics platform, we can deliver alerts through our Action apps and Action server. We can put it into visualizations, deliver analytic services, or embed analytics in business process. And so this is the blueprint for high-performance big data analytics at any scale. We're able to, with our Actyon data flow technology, you can orchestrate your data flows across the entire system. With Actyon Analytics, you have over 1,000 analytic and transformation functions that you can apply to data sitting in Hadoop or in Actyon Matrix or Actyon Vector, our analytic databases. We're able to basically become an exoskeleton around Hadoop so that you can manage all of your Hadoop data in a drag-and-drop visual environment and run high-performance ETL and high-performance transformations and high-performance data science right on Hadoop. And then when you need to, move it over into Actyon Matrix or Vector for extremely high-performant analytics and business intelligence. All of that runs, by the way, with on-demand integration, so you can grab data at the point that you're running a query or asking a question in an application, and you can deliver on-demand analytics to users, machines, business processes, and application. And of course, the Actyon Data Connect technology allows you to connect to any of those sources on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, and even to do that in the cloud. So it is the Actyon Analytics platform that is really driving us forward to this shift from 1.0 to Big Data 2.0, where we're speeding time to analytic value. We are providing accessibility to more and more people that want to do big data analytics, and we're delivering to customers transformative value so that they can become leaders in their particular industries. So I want to just open it up now to the questions and answers. Again, if you have a question, you can enter your question in the lower right-hand side there, and I'm going to turn it back over to Raleigh to guide our question and answer time.
Great. Thank you, John. Starting off with you, John, the first question is, what kind of real-time actionable intelligence are customers seeking while leveraging big data?
So that's a great question. Real-time, the way our customers define it, is not necessarily instant. So there's three aspects of real-time. One is running very sophisticated analytic models that need to be calculated on an hourly basis or maybe every couple of minutes, and then being able to feed that into a real-time response engine that lives on a website or in a call center or is fed out to customer representatives so that response can happen in that immediate time frame. So we're seeing real-time responses where in a couple of banks, for example, where they were looking at T+2 days for their enterprise risk, and they're monitoring shifts that are happening in the marketplace. And they want to be able to respond to those shifts. And in both cases, it was taking them 2 or 3 days to be able to process those massive volumes of market data that are pumped into their big data system, and then be able to determine the enterprise-wide risk and apply it down to individual users and portfolios. That's a very complex analytic algorithm that was being done in 2 or 3 days. In both of those banks, they are now T+2 minutes or T+3 minutes in terms of being able to process that massive, sophisticated risk algorithm, and then they feed that into a real-time system so that a rep in a call center or a wealth manager dealing with one of their most profitable customers can at any point click on that and get immediate data with that 2-minute to 3-minute lag time on the sophisticated analytic that used to take 2 or 3 days. So you can't think of real-time as just an event happening and passing by and responding at real-time. In terms of sophisticated response is a much bigger project than that. And so we're seeing companies combine these highly sophisticated models processed extremely fast with their real-time interaction systems to be able to respond with immediate or instant response.
Great. Thank you, John, for that insight. Shawn, now let's jump over to you. How do you see the scheduling workload automation tools fitting into the ecosystem? Are they gaining importance?
I saw that question come up in the queue before, and the short answer is yes, yes, yes. I think we're starting to see a convergence. We see this very much here at EMA because we have analysts who have areas of specialty in all kinds of different arenas, and EMA has traditionally been an IT analyst firm, and so our roots are very deep there. And more often than you would expect, I think, we find analysts kind of having ad hoc conversations in the halls with the IT IT folks and with the people on my side of the fence around BI and analytics and big data, because it really does get down to that integration and orchestration layer, and the ability to manage, schedule, and understand where the workloads need to be and where they need to go when is certainly becoming part of that, not creating cylinders of excellence, that ability to leverage a hybrid ecosystem in a smarter way. And I think that there's a play there for companies that have facilities or expertise in that space. I think we're going to definitely see things that used to be more traditional IT tools find their way into the ecosystems that are supporting big data analytics and operational workloads.
Thank you, Shawn. John, I'm going to jump back over to you. It's a product-specific question. This attendee wants to know, there are a lot of SaaS analytical models built by customers already. When we move into Actyon, how does it integrate with SaaS? I didn't hear much about that.
Again, certainly SaaS is one of the most widely used analytic tools, and many companies have major investments in SaaS, and we look at that relationship in two ways. One, a lot of times SaaS tends to be the workbench for the development of analytics. And where companies have expertise in that, we encourage them to continue to use that as their workbench where they're fine-tuning these models and algorithms. One of the challenges of SaaS is the ability to perform without building out a massive grid, a massive compute grid to be able to run all the operations. The second is access to data. So on the one hand, we see some of our customers using the Actyon Analytics platform as the data source for SaaS. So because we can highly compress all of the data and put all of the data into a single system, we can provide the SaaS analysts with all the data that they need at a much faster pace without having to go through IT to get it. The second thing that we see happening is there's a point where that SaaS developed algorithm needs to be operationalized and it needs to be highly performant. And rather than keeping it on a slower SaaS platform, a lot of our customers are now creating the analytic functions that are embedded into the Actyon Analytics platform and run as first-class objects within the platform to get this highly performant run of the analytic that was developed in SaaS. And then the third model that we're seeing is some companies, where it makes sense, because they can give their analysts such high performance, they're moving the data and the analytics into the Actyon Analytics platform because they can iterate through that data in maybe 5 minutes as opposed to 5 or 10 hours that it might take to process some of these highly complex algorithms being developed in SaaS and running on the older, slower technology. And so from an analyst productivity standpoint, when you have a highly paid analyst, we're seeing some of our customers saying, we want our analysts running on a highly performant system so they can do their iterations in minutes instead of hours, and we can double or triple the amount of innovation that those analysts can do. So those are some of the ways we're seeing the interaction work with SaaS.
And
great, thanks, John.
You just touched on a couple of points there that are around iteration and speed again, right? That's kind of goes back to the original comments that I was making when I joked about big data has been around a long time, but you used to just ask one question and go away for a week. The real value is in the capacity to do things a lot faster, and your ability to support advanced analytics packages is also an example of kind of a hybrid approach to putting the right pieces of the puzzle together to get the job done in the right amount of time.
Yeah, the other thing that I'll say real quick, Shawn, is that a lot of companies that are expanding their use of analytics, and so they're looking for new ways of being able to run analytics and do it faster. And so, when I go in and talk to somebody that is a director of analytics or something like that, I try and explain all the flexibility of a single platform like the Actyon Analytics platform, where you can use Actyon Data Flow to orchestrate all of your ETL and analytics running entirely on Hadoop or on your desktop. If what you want to do is just data services and data provisioning, You can use Actyon Data Connect by itself and just grab data and deliver it to someone else, and that's on-premise, or in the cloud. I mean, you can actually connect your QuickBooks for a mid-market customer to your Salesforce.com just through a simple selection of a connection. Or you can run these enterprise kinds and ecosystem analytics where you're taking the full power of everything you want to do in Hadoop from an ETL and a data science perspective and high-performance analytic platform, and it all works together. I mean, there's literally these high-performance node-to-node connections between Hadoop and Actyon Matrix so that they're an extension of each other, right? You can move data very rapidly when you need to move it, or you can leave it where it sits and send the processing right to where the data lives. So it's I think that these next generation companies are looking for that extreme agility that comes from a single platform that has a lot of flexibility built into it.
Great. Thank you, John and Shawn, for taking those questions. I know some of you had questions we weren't able to get to during the dedicated Q&A portion. I will go ahead and send those on for you. And I also wanted to remind today's audience to please be on the lookout for that follow-up email. It will include the playback of today's webinar and some additional resources, including a new white paper on Big Data 2.0. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.